the devastation that it brought to northern Florida, and and subsequently the damage and devastation that it brought into the southern Appalachian Mountains, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, and northern Georgia. And we're in the process, we're all watching another hurricane, that's Milton, in the Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of Campeche, that is forecast to go east and hit the west coast of Florida. Now, one of the problems that's being cited is that there's a shortage of repair equipment that in North Carolina, obviously there's a lot of damage in western North Carolina, that a lot of these repair equipment that's used to repair the electrical systems, a lot of that was bought up by the federal government and sent to Ukraine. Now, people do say that, well, if the federal government has money to spend on, giving $1,200 per person per illegal immigrant, or giving all this money to Israel, to Lebanon, to Ukraine, to Taiwan, why don't they have the money to give away to North Carolina? Why is FEMA broke, right? Because FEMA was spending all these resources, bringing all these illegal migrants into the country. And obviously that argument is, there's a rationale to that argument. However, strictly morally speaking, the government shouldn't be involved in doing any of this anyway, right? Anything the government does, it touches, it makes it worse. The best thing to do is to abolish FEMA altogether, is to get rid of FEMA, is not to have a government that plays sides, that gets involved in foreign conflicts, not a government that cuts roadways off in North Carolina, that prevents people from moving around, that picks winners and losers, because that's what the government does. It picks winners and losers. People in the west coast of Florida, they got flooded out and are probably going to get flooded out again. If it's that expensive to build, the government doesn't need to incentivize people to live there. Either people don't live there at all, or they're willing to incur the cost of living there, because it's not cheap to maintain a property that, for insurance reasons, or for obviously repairing the damages out of your own pocket. It's not cheap to maintain property on that type of terrain. So the best thing to do is the government just to get out of it, allow people to eat the loss. Okay, they move out. The land either becomes fallow, or somebody who's very wealthy may buy up the property, and they would have the money to maintain it, right? That's just the way the cookie crumbles. If you can't afford to maintain that type of territory, you shouldn't be there. I live on ground that's a bit higher. I live in Florida. Ground's a little bit higher where I am at. It's very, very unlikely that where I live would be inundated by storm surge, because I'm on higher ground. Now, there are areas around me that are flood prone. And I've lived in Florida my whole life. There's all these people moving into Florida, and they're building in a swampland. Is it wise? If you look around, ultimately you are your own, person of first and last resort. You're the one that has to use your head and think, is this a good place to build? Can I expect somebody to bail me out? Well, apparently not. You can see what's happening in North Carolina. So at the end of the day, you can't depend on the government. Nobody should ever ask the government to do anything. And you can see what the government does. The government picks winners and losers. The government is there to take resources away from somebody and gives it to some special interest. So I say, let's abolish FEMA altogether.